It's like a weird doctor's appointment, Nathan.
Yeah, but I don't have gloves.
Oh God.
If I did, it'd be awesome.
Oh jeez.
Slip.
Hey, look at that.
Just about so.
74. So like exactly 6'2". Let's just measure you out here. Up. And what? Let's call it 6'1" and a half ish. Yeah. So point is, we're both big dudes, right?
We're big dudes.
Now this is a brand new BMW M2 competition, and this happens to be one of the smaller vehicles that BMW makes, but that doesn't mean that it's small on the inside. Check it out. Look at this. We both have plenty of space in here, loads of headroom, loads of knee room, loads of shoulder room.
In fact, if I were driving this vehicle, I'd have to pull the seat up a couple inches. The Germans really do know how to stuff a big guy in a car.
Unfortunately, there's a number of manufacturers that don't seem to get how to do this. So in this video, we're going to take you guys through the top 10 tight cars for tall or big people. Okay, Nathan. Well, we've been getting a bunch of requests from people asking us about which vehicles they should avoid if they're a bigger person. So we thought it was time to make a top 10 list, tell you guys which vehicles you should be avoiding if you're, well, like our height, 6'1" and a half, 6'2". If you're this tall, avoid these vehicles. And number 10 on our list is the Mercedes-Benz GLA class.
That is a tiny cockpit. It's pretty, don't get me wrong, it's a great looking cockpit.
Very luxurious too.
It's very luxurious, it's well put together, but it's also extremely tight, not just with headroom, but also legroom. It's a very small interior.
Number 9 on this list is actually kind of two cars because they're based on the same exact platform. Right. It's the Mazda MX-5 Miata or the Fiat 124 Abarth Spider, or the not Abarth version. Listen guys, we love these cars. They are super fun to drive. They're top-down fun at its purest form. But unfortunately, they're just very, very small vehicles. Fun fact, Nathan, I actually learned how to drive a manual transmission in my friend's mom's NB Miata. And I was like sitting there with my knees were like next to my hands and my head was like at the same level as the top of the windshield. Yep. It's not a fun experience for us to sit in those cars.
No, not really. Now, bear in mind that for you and for Roman, you guys have long legs.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult. I have a tall torso. Yeah. So with the RF, which is the hardtop convertible version of the Mazda MX-5, I fit okay, but not in the passenger compartment. And the reason why is that's where the catalytic converter is underneath. Yep. And so the footwell is even tighter.
Super fun car, but unfortunately not very fun if you're very tall.
Right.
Number 8 on this list is yet another Japanese sports car, but this time much more recent, and that is the Toyota Supra. Now, neither of us have driven the Supra, but we both had the chance to try and sit in one, and it is not an easy process.
No, it is a little bit tight, and Roman recently drove one and actually put together a couple great videos with that car. And he's definitely not the most comfortable inside that car. Now, he is taller than both of us by a little bit, and he doesn't want to ruin his perfect hair. So being in a car that tight is a little bit of a concern for Roman.
Yeah, you can tell, especially when he's like getting in and out. There's a shot where he's like sitting into the car and the top of the door frame is at the bottom of his neck. It's just, you gotta really fold yourself in half to get in there. He says though, once you're in, it's not so bad, but getting in and out is just a really miserable process. Let's keep moving on. The common theme here is low and long, and number 7 on the list is the Chevy Camaro. And this one isn't just tough from a headroom standpoint. This whole interior feels really claustrophobic if you're a bigger dude.
One of the problems with the Camaro is the fact that it has tiny, tiny windows throughout. So even though I can fit, right, I really can, I feel like I'm in a small, small car because it's really hard to see out of. It's one of the more difficult vehicles to see out of, especially with the side windows being like slits out of a tank that you look out of. It is very tight inside because of that. Now, in terms of overall space, there is some elbow room, there is some decent shoulder room, Legroom wasn't too bad. Headroom is a little bit tight.
Yeah, it's one of those things, again, kind of like the Supra, where when you're getting in, you just have to fold yourself in half to do it, and it's pretty unpleasant if you're a taller person. Let's keep moving on. Number 6 on this list is the Honda Civic Type R. And this one isn't actually so bad from a physical space perspective because it's a Honda Civic, right?
Right.
The problem with the Civic Type R is the seats themselves, and specifically how much they're bolstered. They're really cool, they're red seats, they're really fun, but my goodness, are they tight.
The bolsters on those seats are super, super thick, which is for performance reasons, so it really grips you and keeps you in place. But you get a big boy like me in there, and it is a little bit uncomfortable. It feels like King Kong is grabbing you, about to pull you out of the apartment. It is a tight feeling interior because of that. Now, if you don't want that seat, you can always yank them out and put in the SI seats, which I prefer. They're much more comfortable.
It's kind of like when grandma gives you a hug, but she hugs you a little bit too tight.
You got a strong grandma,
and then
bro.
It starts to get a little uncomfortable. You can't really breathe for a minute, and then you have to say, Grandma, let me go. And then you realize it's not actually your grandma, and you have a whole bunch of other questions popping in your head.
Wow, you got issues. Let's continue.
Let's keep going. Number 5 on this list is the Fiat 500, another Fiat. And this one, well, it's just a small car.
It's a tiny car. Now, I honestly believe that the headroom is pretty good, especially if you get the C model, which has this rollback sort of convertible roof. But the legroom is super tight, and it is not an easy car to get comfortable in because the way the steering wheel is positioned versus where you're sitting and everything else, it's kind of hard to find that optimum position if you have long arms, which a lot of tall people do.
Indeed. Keep moving on, shall we? Number 4 on this list is not a car, it's a truck. And that is the Toyota Tacoma. I'm sure you guys have heard us wax on about how hard it is for us to get comfortable in a Tacoma, but it's something about the way the seat is positioned and the way the cabin is shaped that, I don't know, you kind of end up with your legs shooting straight out and somehow you're still kind of hitting your head on the roof. It's just not easy for tall guys to get comfortable in.
Now, I used to own a Tacoma and I absolutely loved the truck. However,
awesome truck, yeah.
It was very uncomfortable for me to drive. Now, there was a 2008. But even the newest one is still not as comfortable, and they've finally mitigated some of that by having an electric seat that will lower a little bit and go back a little bit further. It does help a little bit, but frankly, all the other trucks it competes against, in my book, are more comfortable and have better headroom and better, more usable legroom.
Yeah, the machine-operated seat helps, but it just doesn't quite fix the problem still. And unfortunately, it's just super tight. Keep moving on.
Yes.
Number 3 is another GM product, another Chevy product. It's the Chevy Bolt.
Yeah, now the Bolt is a funny car because it does have a very tall roof. It's almost like a crossover, but it's a little tight in that cockpit and legroom isn't great, especially if you need to spread out. Now, personally speaking, I have a bit of a wide gait and I like to spread out a little bit, and it feels very narrow and confining.
Yeah, when you and I are sitting in that car together, we're doing a lot of
elbow jostling, that's for damn sure.
All right, let's keep moving on. Number 2 on this list is the Ram ProMaster. It's a van.
That's right, it's the big van, and it has an unusual seat that when you sit in it and it tilts back, it feels like you're in a doctor's office. The steering wheel is an unusual position, and it's really difficult to actually find a comfortable seating position relative to where the pedals are and the steering wheel. Very uncomfortable for me, and it sort of feels like it was built for a smaller person.
All right, well, last but not least, we've come to number 1 on our list. Guys, by the way, these are ranked in no particular order.
That's
these
correct.
Are just, you know, top 10 vehicles that we thought of. Number 1 is the Chevy Corvette. Again, a vehicle we absolutely love. We had a Corvette Grand Sport, and if you get the convertible, you can kind of mitigate this issue, but my goodness, that is not the easiest vehicle for us to get comfortable in.
It's not the easiest to get in and out of. I actually am totally comfortable inside of a Corvette. But once again, I have much shorter legs than Roman or this guy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, that vehicle is a little bit confining on the interior. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen when they have the mid-engine Corvette come out and if that's going to change the interior layout.
You know, having the engine further up might actually push things even closer together, which could make it harder for us big guys to get comfortable in the Corvette. But we shall see, because that Corvette is coming out in, well, we're going to see it for the first time in a couple months.
I hope so.
All right, well, we do have a bonus as always because we like to include some extras. And the bonus, well, we made it the bonus because it's not brand new. It's not currently available for purchase, but it's the previous generation Mercedes G-Wagon.
Now, I know what you're thinking. The G-Wagon, that's a big cube. That thing should have tons of space inside. Yeah, not so much.
No, not really.
You know, the thing is that with that vehicle, the seat sits really high inside, and you can only drop it a little bit. it doesn't give you a lot of headroom. Roman and I, actually with Andre, had an opportunity to take one of these off-road. And remember, we're talking about the previous version.
Yep.
And we bounced around with it, had a great time with it, but all of us noticed the same thing. Wow, not a lot of room up front.
Now guys, that completes our list for today, but as always, we're sure that you have plenty of awesome suggestions for this list, so please drop some comments down below. Tell us, if you're a tall person, which vehicles do you have a hard time getting comfortable in, because we want to hear your answers. We do read the comments, and we hope you enjoyed this video. For the Fast Lane Car, I'm Mike Curtis.
I'm Nathan Adlin.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and be sure to come back to TFLcar.com for the latest news, views, real-world reviews, and more cars that you should probably avoid if you're on the bigger side.
See you guys.